Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Sir Gary, and a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I thank as well with the honourable member for North East Derbyshire, who spoke characteristically, thoughtfully, and without triumphalism. And I think that he is absolutely right. And the tone of this debate from now on, and I speak as must be in that tone, I speak as someone who represents a constituency that voted 78% for Remain. But let's be clear why we're here, Sir Gary. It has been a total failure of political craft. In 2015, even I voted for that second referendum because it is a convention in this House to support a government with a new majority in the early days of its administration. And in 2015, the Conservative Party won the general election, and I backed that referendum against many of my instincts to do so. But from then on, it was a failure, a slow, a cumbersome, secretive, and it was a lot of dither. And I very reluctantly and late in the day came to the idea of a second referendum as a way of breaking that impasse. But it was not something that even in my very Remain constituency was part of the major discourse in 2017 in that general election. So I think when we're having debates about this, and as the honourable member said, entrench into positions, we have to remember that, and I urge the other side to remember that too. And I know that the Secretary of State, we've served together on the Public Accounts Committee, as I have indeed with the member for North East Derbyshire. That committee represented every range of views on Brexit in the last 2.5 years. You couldn't have had a more diverse range. And yet we produced over 11 reports that were unanimous, that were critical at times of the government, quite rightly, because I would hope the right honourable gentleman would expect us to be critical of him when he gets things wrong. But we went at it constructively, looking at the facts and looking at the data, and working hard to try and press the government to do a better job. So I do hope that, although I won't vote for this bill today, because I'm going to list the reasons why, that the government listens to those reasons, because they aren't just because we feel sore losers, but because there are very valid reasons that this rushed bill and the rushed debate on it could lead to real problems for the future. It's weak on workers' rights. That is categorically clear. And then assuming that there's going to be a trickle-down of benefits when businesses allegedly, or hopefully as the government would say, do well, is a poor argument. In my constituency, there are very many people working several low-paid jobs on irregular contracts, very insecure. I can't see how they're going to get the benefits, and I want to see that protection in law. There's the removal of the support for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, something I've been dealing with as an elected politician since 1994, when we found them wandering alone on Holloway Road in Islington, where I was then a councillor. And the importance of the EU partnership in dealing with that is important. But let's not forget why they come. It's trafficking. So, Gary, let's deal with the cause, not the symptom. And I think it is mean-spirited to take that out. And there are many issues which we haven't got time to go into today around security. And I was the Home Office Minister negotiating for the British government on many of these issues when we were last in government, which is now quite some time ago. There are other issues too. The fixed end of the implementation period, I think, is a really foolish step, if I may say respectfully to the right honourable gentleman, because it allows no wriggle room. And I know there's this great belief on the government side that if you set a deadline, you'll get a better negotiation. I think there's a real risk there that you could end up throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and that will not bring the country together. And then, of course, we're going to see the phoenix of the quangos, as many of our European regulations have to be replicated in British law. So much for the bonfire of red tape. And on immigration, I tremble. I represent myself and the honourable member for Hackney North and Stoke Newington represent between us 40,000 EU citizens. And any idea that the government can suddenly turn the immigration system and make a great, simple new deal on immigration is foolhardy. I've been there. I've seen 10 years of it getting worse, and I think that the government needs to heed that warning very carefully. But I'm also concerned about the length of time, Sir Gary, for debating this. It is too short and it's not democratic.
Thank you, Sir Gary. Welcome to your place. I hope you enjoy your time in the chair. And it's a pleasure to be back here in Parliament, although it's felt a little bit like Groundhog Day again today. I hope for the final time, as we all are able to move on. On Brexit, we've given all of us the same speech over and over and over again for the last 2.5 years in what has been a cyclical and repetitive debate that has gotten us nowhere until this election has provided a very decisive breakthrough. And it's fantastic to be here to begin to deliver for the people of this country when we have made these promises for so long, to now be able to begin to legislate to get Brexit done. And it may be the perfect day in politics, because not only are we able to begin that process, But the Attorney-General has also gifted us his version of A Night Before Christmas, which will make for a very festive time that should meet with universal acclaim. It is a fantastic day for us all. The people of Mansfield voted 71% to leave in the referendum, and they've shared our frustration and the anger felt by many people in this place over the last 2.5 years. They wanted us to be grown-ups and to sort this thing out. And they were decisive in this election too. They returned me to this place with an increased mandate and an increased majority. And I thank them profusely, and I intend to serve them with all sincerity and to the best of my ability in this Parliament. And that starts with delivering this bill beginning today. And I tell them now there is no reason or excuse why we can't get this done now by the 31st of January. We will get it delivered and we will do exactly as we have promised. And I'm sure that the majority of my constituents will celebrate in that fact. I welcome the commitments in this bill, new commitment to this 2020 deadline for a trade deal. I think we saw the impact of a never-ending, constantly moving deadline in the previous Parliament that simply did not work, that weakened our hand, and now we have the ability to show that strength and the determination that the Prime Minister has shown throughout his time in office. And I would like to point out to members opposite who consistently have raised issues of workers' rights, of regulatory standards. This isn't a bill about workers' rights or regulatory standards. It's not true to say that there is an inevitable decline in those things from leaving the European Union. The fact is, and the point of all this, is that this House will decide, and this country will decide, our own standards and regulatory standards. And actually, you continue, not you, Mr Streeter, Sir Gary, but the opposition continue to miss the point of what Brexit was about. There was a very well-known slogan in the referendum about control. You may remember it. It was largely, for many people, about control and about the sovereign powers of this Parliament. Aligning ourselves to EU directives defeats the entire purpose of what Brexit was about. We can, as a UK Parliament, go further and faster and better than the European Union in areas like the environment, in areas like workers' rights, and it will be us in this place that will decide. And that is exactly what all of us who have pushed to get this thing over the line over the last few years have been waiting for. So I'll back this bill today. I look forward to planning with certainty this time for a celebration on the 31st of January in my constituency, and I have huge optimism for the future of this country with this fantastic and decisive and determined Conservative government. Yeah.